What's good, big dogs? It is full rookie season swing right now in your Dynasty Fantasy Football chats. In all of those conversations, we are talking rookies. Seems like it is getting very close to draft time. And that means we got the NFL Combine that is about to happen here in about a week and a half, maybe by the time that you guys are seeing this video. It will be time for the Underwear Olympics. We'll get our first eyes on these prospects and we'll get to see them run those 40-yard dashes and really overreact to that, get super excited about all of it. But what I wanted to do today is I wanted to put together a list of players who I think have a lot that they can either gain from a good NFL Combine performance or players that could have a lot to lose if they go out and give us a dud at the NFL Combine. So think of it as a potential players to watch that could really change their draft capital in your rookie drafts or in the NFL draft. And it's about that time we tuck that shirt in, baby. So the first player that I wanted to bring up on this list is I want to talk about J.J. McCarthy, quarterback for the Michigan Wolverines. And J.J. finished his career over there at Michigan with a 27-1 record, which is the third best winning percentage from any college football quarterback in college football history. So he did have a pretty good resume over there at Michigan. And during his time here with the Michigan Wolverines, he did lead them to 3 consecutive Big Ten championships. And then, of course, a 2023 national championship here this season, where the Michigan Wolverines had the first 15-0 season in Big Ten history. So they did the unimaginable. They went undefeated and they won that national championship under J.J. McCarthy. And I do like the improvement that J.J. has showed us as a quarterback here at the college level. He constantly improved as a college quarterback, getting a little bit better in that completion percentage and that yardage every single year, where he did finally finish his collegiate career here in 2023 with a career high in completion percentage, passing yards, and a passer rating in 2023. So he did cap off his college career on a very high note there at Michigan. And not only did J.J. McCarthy show us that he was a very accurate quarterback, but he did show us that he has a little bit that he can do with his legs. Not necessarily a guy who you're going to be designing runs for, but a guy who can roll out when the pocket collapses and make a play with his legs while still making that big play downfield. And I think J.J. McCarthy has a lot to gain from a very good NFL Combine performance because he's already generating a little bit of NFL draft buzz. This is a guy who we've seen starting to get mocked in the top 12 of NFL draft mocks. And there was a recent report the other day where they said a NFC team reportedly has J.J. McCarthy as the QB2 in the class. So I think if J.J. goes out there, has a good NFL Combine performance, maybe wows some teams in the interview rooms, this is a guy who could start rising up draft boards and potentially be a guy who we see start rising up these rookie draft boards, especially in these super flex leagues that we might have to end up using a first round pick on if he does end up getting the good draft capital because of that Combine performance. Now, the second player that I'm going to be watching here at the Combine is going to be Tez Walker, wide receiver out of UNC. And Tez Walker, he ended up starting his collegiate career here at Kent State. He played there for 2 seasons before transferring over to UNC as a junior. And he posted a 2023 season where he went for 41 receptions for 699 yards and 7 touchdowns. And this is after he had paired up with Drake May. Now, it's important to note that Tez Walker was named 2023 preseason All-ACC team. And then in a very controversial and highly criticized decision by the NCAA, he was deemed ineligible as a 2-time transfer after going to UNC. And this forced him to miss the first 4 games of the season before his eligibility was officially reinstated. So there is a period of time this year where Tez Walker was not on the field and it was kind of out of his control. So don't necessarily look at those end of season stats and think that that tells the full story. So despite that rough start to his 2023 season, Tez would go on, he would play the rest of the year, and then he would eventually accept an invite to the 2024 Senior Bowl, where Tez Walker was getting a lot of buzz going into this week. He was deemed as a fringe first round talent going into the Senior Bowl, but unfortunately the week didn't go very well for Tez Walker, so he started to fall down draft boards for some people. And like I said, unfortunately the week didn't go very well for Tez Walker. He showed up, he dealt with a lot of drops, and unfortunately in his only deep ball that he got there in the Senior Bowl game, he did drop that. That was coming from Bo Nix. So it really was a week that was forgettable for Tez Walker. He really just didn't put his best film on tape there for NFL scouts, so it just wasn't a good week overall. So I think because of that, he could really benefit from a good combine, kind of regain the hope of these NFL scouts, kind of show him that that week over there in Mobile where he was at the Senior Bowl was kind of just a bad week. It was a fluke week. But on the contrary, I do think if he goes out and has a bad performance at the NFL Combine, that could trigger a lot of red flags in these NFL scouts, in these general managers, and they might look at it and say, hey, look, he went and had a bad week at the Senior Bowl. He came out to the NFL Combine and had a bad week as well. These could be some red flags for NFL scouts. So I think that Tez Walker has a lot to gain and a lot to lose here at the NFL Combine. So hopefully he comes in, brings his A game, and shows the best performance that he possibly can here at the NFL Combine this week. Now, moving on to the third player that I'm going to be keeping my eye on, it is going to be back at Michigan, and we're talking about wide receiver Roman Wilson. Now, Roman was a four-star recruit coming out of high school where he did eventually commit to the University of Michigan. He played 4 years there at Michigan, so he did go back there for his senior season in 2023, and it turned out to be the right move for Roman Wilson because he ended up posting 48 receptions for 789 yards and 12 touchdowns, which would become his best statistical season there at Michigan. And then, of course, he would go on to win the national championship as a senior. But just like Tez Walker, Roman Wilson was invited to the Senior Bowl, so he showed up down there in Mobile earlier this spring, but he did the opposite of what Tez Walker did. He went out there, he surprised a lot of guys, he put together an incredible performance on the week, and he really left coaches and scouts wowed with his play while he was down there that week for the Senior Bowl. And since then, we've kind of seen him start to climb up some of these NFL mock drafts. We've recently seen him start to be getting drafted in those top 50 players in these NFL mocks. So this is a guy who is already starting to climb up draft boards. And the reason why I'm really excited to see him at the NFL Combine, because I think if Roman Wilson can put together two performances, the really good performance that he had down there in Mobile at the Senior Bowl and a really good performance down there in Indianapolis there at the NFL Combine, if he can do that, I think this is a guy who is going to quickly become a dynasty darling for you guys in your fantasy football leagues, and a guy who is going to really get full hype train mode and start really flying up these NFL draft boards. So I think he could benefit tremendously from back-to-back good performances in the Senior Bowl and in the NFL Combine. Now, the next player that I'm going to be watching is going to be Ja'Tavion Sanders, tight end for the Texas Longhorns. And we obviously know that there is a very clear tight end one in this class. Everybody knows it. We all talk about it. It's Brock Bowers. But I don't know if there's that much clarity on who the number two is. I think a good amount of people would say it is Sanders, but I just don't think it's as solidified as Brock Bowers is as that number one. And Sanders is one of those athletic freaks that we look for at the tight end position, especially when it translates to fantasy football points. He's one of those basketball players turned NFL tight end, kind of like those Antonio Gates, Jimmy Graham type of players that we've seen before. And Sanders was a really good prospect coming out of high school. He was a five-star recruit, and he eventually committed to Texas over programs like Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Ohio State, Notre Dame. A lot of really good schools had this guy on their radar, and he eventually chose Texas. And when he went to Texas as a freshman, he was playing both defense and offense in preseason practices. Really didn't play much as a freshman, really just did a lot of special teams work. And when he came in as the full-time starter as a sophomore, he put together two really solid seasons for the Longhorns, finishing with a total of 99 receptions for 1,295 yards and 7 touchdowns. And he also made all Big 12 first team in both of those seasons as a starter in 2022 and 2023. So there is a lot of good things that Ja'Tavion was able to put together as a college professional at Texas. Now, the reason why I'm really excited to watch Sanders at the Combine is because he really shows his athleticism on tape. This is a guy who was running a 4.5 40 in high school, and he sits about 250 pounds, 6'4". He is just a big athletic freak who has that speed. So I want to see how he tests here at the NFL Combine. That mix of size and that mix of speed is very rare. And when we do see that, we see that NFL teams get very excited about it. I think a good Combine performance this week could see him start flying up draft boards. And I think that if he does put that together, this is a guy who could be a fringe first round pick and definitely a top 50 pick here in the NFL draft. And because of that, I think we will end up looking at Ja'Tavion Sanders as the clear tight end 2 in this class, and a guy who we will be taking in that mid-second round, especially in those tight end premium leagues. Now, the fifth and final player that I'm going to be watching at the NFL Combine is going to be Jayden Daniels. And I know Jayden Daniels is going to be one of the first players taken in the NFL draft this year. He's been very hyped and very deservingly hyped because he put together a very good season here in 2023 as a senior at LSU. And although I don't think he has much more to gain as far as NFL draft cap, this is a guy who's probably going to be a top 5 NFL pick come the NFL draft. But I do think we could see this guy slowly start creeping up your rookie draft board, specifically in your Dynasty Fantasy Football leagues, if he puts together a good combine. And like I said, this guy is coming off of an incredible season at LSU. He went for nearly 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns this season. And he also won virtually every single award that you could win in college football, including the Heisman Trophy, the Manning Award, SEC Offensive Player of the Year. This guy was basically winning every trophy that they could create. And although a good combine performance probably doesn't take Jayden Daniels to be the #1 pick in the NFL draft. I do think it does have the ability to possibly surpass Drake May, and I think Jayden Daniels could become the consensus QB2 in this class if he has a good combine. And like I mentioned, I do think that the combine does more for his dynasty draft stock than it does for his NFL draft stock, because we've already seen Jayden Daniels start to get some hype on social media. Some people even have Jayden Daniels as their QB1 for fantasy football in this class due to his dual threat ability. I do think that is a likely case scenario for Jayden Daniels if he goes out and balls out there in Indy at the NFL Combine. And because of that, he is definitely a player that we should be watching closely, especially if we're playing in these Dynasty Superflex leagues. So if you made it to this point in the video, go ahead and let me know who you guys are going to be watching at the NFL Combine in the comments below. Also, make sure you guys are hitting that button that looks like this for us. With all of that being said, guys, we don't have anything else for you guys today, so we'll see you in our next video. But until then, peace out.